So Nick, first off, congratulations about your Inner Circle win.
Thanks, Travis.
The army looks awesome. Like, love the Genestealer cult. Really eye-popping colors there. What made you decide to do Inner Circle?
It was actually my store manager that made me decide to do it. I did Armies on Parade for the first time last year.
Right.
And I really enjoyed it because I'm more interested in the sculpting, converting, painting, that kind of stuff rather than playing.
Yeah.
So Armies on Parade felt like a way to really demonstrate the side of the hobby that I was interested in, and also take kind of a narrative for the force, or show like a concept across a whole army rather than just in one model.
Sure.
So that got me started. But then when you guys were, I guess, starting work on Inner Circle, I had this moment where Mike, who's the amazing manager at our Games Workshop, he came up to me. He's like, "I need to speak to you." I was like, "Oh my god, I pissed off Mike. How did I do that?" He's the nicest guy, and he's like, "There's a thing happening. It's like Armies on Parade. I don't know what it is yet. I don't have any details, but you have to do it." I was like, all right, I guess I'm doing it.
Right.
So there was that. There was also the case that my brother is one of my biggest hobby cheerleaders.
Sure.
I got into 40K because he wanted to buy my friend's Ultramarine army, and I had no interest until someo's like, "Hey, have you heard about Tyranids? Check out these Tyranids." And I was like,
Right.
"Wow, I want to get on that." So my brother got me into the hobby, and he now lives in Japan. So we kind of use the hobby as a way to keep in touch. And he knew that I could do it more than I did, and he was like, "I'm going to issue a challenge. The two of us are going to have a competition. Who can paint the most models from January to the end of March?" And it just happened to align perfectly with Inner Circle.
Oh, that's awesome.
So it was like that, and then another project that I was working on. So it just aligned perfectly that he motivated me to do it, and he wound up painting no models, but I just painted a buttload of models and was able to get a lot done in a short period of time for Inner Circle.
So you won.
Yeah. Yeah, oh, I won the challenge, yeah. And then the cool part about it is that the winner gets to issue a hobby challenge to the other person. So now basically one of us is going to pick a project that the other had started and never finished, that we wanted to see them finish. So now I get to challenge him to finish his hobby.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah.
That's cool. So tell me about the Genestealers.
So the Genestealers, I kind of had this, I've been a long-time Tyranid player since second edition, so dog's age, since the ninth grade. And I always loved the Genestealer cult, but I couldn't find good models to use for it.
Right.
And I had told myself that I had this vision for the Genestealer cult where I wanted them to have kind of trench coats or gray coats. So I said, as soon as Games Workshop does gray coat, guard, and plastic, I'm going to build a Genestealer cult. Right. But then, of course, Games Workshop did the thing that I never would have expected them to do, and they released Genestealer cult models. So I was like, okay, this is even better. Now I have to do a Genestealer cult. So it was from my Tyranid influence, and then on to just being interested in the cult. The models are so good that I was like, I have to do this. But then it was also a number of different influences came together. A lot of my stuff, like my Patriarch, for example, he's based on a Guillermo del Toro TV series called The Strain. And it's kind of a modern take on vampires. And it's this cool...
I so didn't catch it at first.
Have you seen it?
Yeah.
Yeah, so that's where his whole open mouth, creepy tongue thing comes from, and kind of his robes as well. And my choice to use I don't know if I can't remember what it's called, a Crypt Ghoul or Crypt Fiend head instead of the big bulbous Patriarch head. So yeah, he's inspired by the Master in The Strain. And I wanted to do more of that with more guys with the weird tongues coming out, but I kind of ran out of time on it. But yeah, and I like the idea that Guillermo del Toro puts forward in his TV show that it's this vampirism has come to New York, and they're like, oh, this is some kind of big plague. We need to study this. We need to call in the Centers for Disease Control. And I kind of thought, well, that's Genestealers, right? Genestealers are space vampires. Yeah. They would infest a planet, and people would be like, well, people get weirdly sick. So it all kind of came together. So that's also where I took the skin tone for the cult. That one thing, because I like converting so much, I like sculpting, I like people really taking the time to personalize their models more than just giving them a paint coat. I was a little disappointed that as much as people take the standard Genestealer scheme, the pink skin, the blue armor, and they do great things with it. It looks amazing, but I want to see something different. A lot of people, you have Tyranid armies, which are all the colors of the rainbow. So it's why would you all do your Genestealers pink? I understand that's kind of the accepted color for them in the fluff. Sure. But I wanted to do something different. So their skin tone being the green, I took it from, again, The Strain, where in The Strain, people have this kind of greenish hue to their skin. So that's what inspired the skin tone in them.
So do you want to tell us a little bit more about the army itself?
Yeah, sure. So it's my vision for the army is that it's a very old Genestealer cult. I don't love the idea that a Genestealer cult is a flash in a pan before Tyranids roll up and eat them all. So I wanted to kind of show that it had been around for a long time. And how I did that is that I introduced different kind of strata in the cult. So there's So I don't recognize these guys, but you've got like the three different levels of cultists. So you've got like the new recruit guys who are really eager to join the cult, but they haven't really been accepted into it yet.
Right.
So they choose to like garb themselves in robes that emulate the color of like the Chintan on the other Tyranids. So they choose like the teals, and they have like little pops of red because in the cult, the closer you get to the patriarch, the more red you're allowed to wear. So like if you look at like the cultists that have like full red robes, they're the ones that are like in the inner circle serving the patriarch. So the new guys have like red bandanas and stuff because like, we want to be cool like you. But then once they get accepted into the cult, they wear black armor with kind of red accents to it. And that was again inspired by the strain because there's a group of vampires who hunt vampires in the strain, and they have black fatigues, and they have these red insets in their hoods. And I really like the look of that.
Sure.
So that's kind of what inspired me for the armor scheme for them. And again, so they're kind of like the rank and file militia in the army with like red accents. And then once they get to like the inner circle of the cult, they put on full red robes and armor. And you can kind of see that on the patriarch as well, where he has that red flowing robe. And I did it on my Genestealers as well, where they're kind of like hidden under these red cloaks, so they can like throw them off and tear people apart. Yeah. Other than that, in terms of the fluff for the army, excuse me. In terms of the fluff for the army, because I wanted them to be kind of an older Genestealer cult, I had to find a way in the backstory for them to be cut off from the Hive Fleet, because otherwise the Hive Fleet would just roll up and eat them. So I don't know where I kind of got the idea, but I had the idea that they had a Magus who was once like they sent an assassin out. They're like, go get that Magus, take out that Genestealer cult. So the assassin took out the Magus, shot him in the head, but he took out the part of the Magus's brain that was controlled by the Hive Mind. So he kind of had this enlightening moment where he's like, no guys, it's all a lie, like our four-armed emperors the gods from beyond the stars are coming to eat us, like they're going to kill us. So he imparted this to the patriarch before he died. So they've enshrined him as their acolyte icon ward, so you can kind of see him on the acolyte icon ward, which is based on the art from the front of the Genestealer cult book. So that guy's there, and he's got a little hole in the back of his head so you can see where he got shot. So he told the patriarch, these Tyranids are not cool. So what they did is that on the patriarch's throne, they have enslaved Zoanthrope on it, and they're using that Zoanthrope to both mask them from the Hive Fleets and also to amplify their like psychic abilities. So I've kind of like given a lot of thought to it. It's all because I want it to be like a cult that's been around for thousands of years rather than just like 100 years. And like it spins out like, because they don't worship the Tyranids anymore, they're worshiping something else, and it's kind of nebulous what they're worshiping. But the cult is called the Omega Strain, and there should be kind of the strain is a link to Guillermo del Toro, but the Omega is a little bit of a hint of what they might be worshiping.
Nice. So the army is you completed the inner circle. What's the thing you're most proud of with the army?
The thing I'm most proud of is probably the throne that I created for the. I don't know. There's a lot of stuff that I'm proud of in it. Like I think the board turned out amazing because I made like a sewer system underneath a Sector Imperialis board, and that's something where like my girlfriend helped me like stamp out like sculpting on it. My dad helped me build the box. Like it's something I never thought I could do. My buddy Josh is the one who like was like, you should. I set these lights underneath the Sector Imperialis board so that I could have like this moody yellow lighting in the sewer. It looks really awesome. My buddy Josh came along. He's like, huh. What's that remote for those lights? Oh, you can make these cycle like disco lights. You should make them disco lights. You now have a disco cult. I'm like, no, man, it's not cool. It's not like serious, like a sewer. He's like, shut up. You have a disco cult now. So yeah, a lot of people like helped inspire different parts of it. So I'm proud of all that stuff. But the throne is something that literally grew from the smallest mention in the Genestealer cult codex, where in the Bone Sword entry for Genestealer cults, it literally says like Genestealer cults bone swords come from the Osseous throne, and then you look in the codex, there's no other mention of the Osseous throne. So I'm like, what would an Osseous throne be? So I kind of took the classic idea of the patriarch's throne and kind of merged that with this idea of a growing living organism that would grow these bone swords off of it. So that came to fruition in the throne, and it feels like a really awesome centerpiece for the army, and I'm thrilled with how it came out, and just like the number of bits in it. Like I've got 3 tyrant bone swords, a tyrant horn in there. I've got old armor plates off a Scythe Paradule that I cut off and just kept in my bits box. And then just a lot of sculpting around like a Mage Rathrone. So yeah, I'm pretty happy with it.
Oh, that's awesome. No, it came out great.
Thanks.
So what got you started in the hobby?
It was literally my brother wanting to
Yeah.
buy Ultramarines off my buddy. My brother was like, "Oh, I want to get into Warhammer," and I don't know how I found out about it because years previously, a friend's older brother had played the game,
Hmm.
and I rolled up in their basement one day, and there was this amazing table where his parents had physically built like hills and greenery and all this stuff into it. It wasn't just scatter terrain.
Yeah.
So that really inspired me, but I never started the hobby. And then years later, I had known about the hobby, and I don't know how I found out that a friend had a Space Marine army. My brother wanted to buy it, and I have this like strong belief that when I don't know if you had this experience, but a lot of us when we were younger, like we're kids, we've got allowance or whatever.
Yeah.
You find this cool game called Warhammer. You're like, oh, I want to get my friends into this, and you kind of like introduce them to stuff. You're like, well, we need an Eldar player. And it's like, why don't we show like Johnny this Eldar book and see if he'll bite?
Yeah, absolutely.
So someone did that to me. They showed me a Tyranid book, and I was like, oh, that's pretty cool. And then I was sold from that. So yeah, it was very much second edition Tyranids that got me into it.
Right.
And just like someone had opened a model case, and I just saw these monsters with arms everywhere and multicolored. And it really sold me on it. And specifically the old Screamer Killer Carnifex, like the pewter one with the big "Come Give Me a Hug" talons. That is like my first favorite model.
So, what was the color scheme of the first Tyranid army?
It was the second edition color scheme,
Yeah.
which was no color scheme. It was like you went to the Tyranid Codex, you're like, okay, they paint the Genestealers purple, they paint the Termagants red with brown bone, they paint that lictor's blue, but then maybe a lictor in a different color. The second edition Codex for Tyranids was very much a riot of color. The Carnifexes kind of had this like black talons with red tips thing, but you were a lot freer in it. So that was where I started. But then my Tyranid scheme, once like Tyranids redefined in third edition to be kind of like a uniform color scheme across the whole army, the carapace plates in my Genestealer color, like the Chintin or whatever, that's kind of like my Tyranid scheme. But then the skin on my Tyranids was like a dark green. But it's something where now that the new 40K's out and Tyranids are awesome, I'm going to have to go back and kind of like revise my Tyranids, I think.
Sure.
I didn't love my old scheme.
Right.
Yeah.
So, you said that last year was the first time you participated in Armies on Parade. What army did you do for that?
My other love, other than like cult/Tyranids, is Dark Eldar, and specifically the Dark Eldar Homunculus coven.
Right.
So my vision for that is to create a Homunculus coven where you have all the normal Homunculus units like Rax, Grotesques, all that kind of stuff, but you also have representation for other Dark Eldar units. Like, how would a Homunculus coven do a Witch? How would a Homunculus coven do a Raider? So for that force, I converted a Homunculus Venom. And I basically took like a Talos and I built it into a Venom. And instead of people like riding around on top of it, it has these like hooks that come down and like hook into their flesh and carry them around like slabs of meat. So yeah, that was my army for Armies on Parade. It was my Homunculus coven. And it was pretty cool. I do a lot of sculpting. So I sculpted kind of like spinal column growths all over the board. And I like inset the sigil for our army, or for my army. And yeah, there's a lot of like, we had a lot of blood and guts out of just yarn and PVC glue.
Right.
Not PVC glue. PVA glue. Yeah. And I just kind of like spread that all over the place. And I was very happy with it.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah.
So, any advice that you give someone to doing this type of event in the future?
Try sculpting. It's not as hard as you think it is. I'm not someone who's a like professionally trained sculptor. I literally learned to sculpt through Warhammer.
Sure.
And it was just by finding a sketch that I liked and trying to emulate it. And I think a lot of people are scared of sculpting and they don't try it, or they start sculpting but they don't start with a very good basis.
Right.
And they're frustrated by how sticky the green stuff is, or like they're not using the right tools, that kind of stuff. So I try a lot online to like encourage people to sculpt. Like I've written some articles about how to sculpt, and I'm making a video series right now just to like show people to get them started.
Right.
So that they have like a very easy like introduction into sculpting. It's not as frustrating. But other than that advice, I would just say you should try it. I think there's a lot of people who might get discouraged, like, oh, I don't know if I can do that. But you really don't know until you try. And the cool thing about how Inner Circle was set up is that there's a lot of ways that you could score points that weren't just like, are you the best painter ever? Because I don't think of myself as the best painter ever. And I look at some of the other guys' entries who are here, and I'm like, I don't paint at that level.
Sure.
But there's so much other stuff that goes into it, like concept, display, having you find trying conversions.
Right.
Like you can do conversions, get a lot of points for them, and you don't have to be master. You just find a piece here that works with a piece there, and then combine them.
Sure.
Yeah.
So, did you have any tricks to keep yourself motivated throughout getting this army put together?
In terms of tricks for motivation, it was really cool to have like the events to plan for, the Inner Circle events, where it's like, we're going to have a conversion contest at this point. We're going to have painting contest at this point, so we
Yeah.
gotta have things painted for that. Other than that, the challenge that I had with my brother, where
Right.
he was like, "Oh yeah, we see how many miniatures you can paint in 3 months." But there was also other things going on just in the online community. There was an event called Squaduary
Mhm.
that someone hosted in February, where they challenged people to like build a squad from the beginning of February and then have it painted and based and fully complete by the end of February.
Right.
And that's something that a lot of there's a number of those that go on the internet. So there was Squaduary, which I participated in. There was Monster March, which someone else hosted, which was when I painted my patriarch.
Mhm.
I built him and painted him in March for that.
Yeah.
And then there's a huge event that goes on every year is Dreadtober.
Mhm.
So it's a contest that someone else hosts. I think it's this guy named Greggles online. I think he's the main host for it. And it's every October, build and paint a dreadnought size thing. So that kind of stuff, if you're having trouble getting motivation, you can find stuff like that. And then other than that, it's just like being part of the online Warhammer community,
Sure.
posting my stuff, getting feedback,
Right.
and that was really motivating. All the people who commented and liked it.
Do you want to give a shout out to anybody?
A billion people. Yeah, I definitely want to give a shout out to my brother and to my girlfriend because they're huge motivating factors.
Sure.
To my buddy Josh, who was another big motivator for me. There was a tournament in April
Mhm.
that I also wanted to have the army finish for, and he dragged me into it. And I wouldn't have done it unless Josh
Right.
convinced me to. So he's been a huge cheerleader,
Mhm.
and even through inner circle and all that stuff. I was like, I'm not gonna win. He's like, shut up, dude. You're gonna win. It's gonna be fine. I'm like, no, I suck. So yeah, those guys, Mike and
Mhm.
Brando, and Alfonso at the
Yep.
Games Workshop Young and Lawrence store. They're just amazing dudes, and they do really well, encouraging people for the Games Workshop hobby. And I want to give a shout out to my one true love, Jessica, who makes all the best models. I've met him once, but he's the nicest dude. And he does a lot of good stuff for the hobby. But just right now, the stuff the Games Workshop is doing is so inspiring.
Mhm.
Having grown up through second edition and
Yeah.
old school White Dwarf, and seeing the way the community was promoted and encouraged then,
Yep.
it's miles beyond that now. Just the way the Games Workshop's doing, both on the community side and encouraging the community and embracing the community, and also on the models that they're creating.
Sure.
I never would have thought in a million years that Genestealer was coming back.
Right.
I never would have thought AdMac was ever going to get models. And what if you can dream it? Games Workshop's already got it in the production pipeline. So I want to give a huge shout out to those guys and all the guys in the studio who make this stuff happen.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Hey, look, thanks again for participating. Thanks for putting together such a gorgeous army. It's been amazing having you guys here.
Thanks. Well, thank you guys so much for hosting us. It was crazy to have this kind of grand prize at the end of things.
Uh-huh.
You can win a golden demon, you can win a Slayer sword. That looks pretty good. But at the end of the day, no one's flying you out to Games Workshop HQ and hanging out and doing all this cool stuff that we've had the chance to do.
Right.
And it's so great to meet you guys and be able to put faces to the people behind the hobby.
Uh-huh.
And yeah, it's been a pleasure.
Awesome. Well, thanks, Nick.
Sure. Thank you.